Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest Chapter 216 is officially out, and honestly, pretty decent chapter, I'm not gonna lie. Has a really good moment. Its characterization actually maintains consistency and does something that I wasn't fully expecting, but also kind of confirms something from last week's video on my thoughts on how Wendy versus Alderone could go and how Wendy could get a power-up. And I got spoilers for the chapter thanks to the thumbnail. She does get a new power-up, which I think is really cool for Wendy specifically. But we'll talk about that later on. And we get Natsu face-to-face with Ignia again, which I predict will be the last time we see Natsu and Ignia in the same spot for a couple of chapters. I pray it's until the end of the year, because this needs to be the final part of the story, because I want no other distractions or cutaways once we get Natsu versus Ignia round technically 3. Also, there's a storm outside where I am right now, so excuse the thunder. Honestly, if this was a Loxus chapter, it would actually really help the ambiance. But all that aside, let's jump right into the chapter. Chapter 216 of Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest, titled Verger, and that is going to be important later on. Cover image is of Natsu and Fortune fist bumping, and honestly, a pretty relevant cover image as we begin and end the chapter with Natsu and Miss Fortune. As we begin with Happy outside of the literal sun that Ignia is creating, looking up, thinking of Natsu and Fortune. As Natsu and Fortune are racing through the sun to make it to its core, even Natsu is feeling the outer heat, as this heat is saying, wait, is this how people feel when they say that fire is hot? And that's crazy coming from Natsu, because again, remember, he has a high, near invulnerable ability to feeling heat. So for him to feel heat, that is a whole next level of firepower at this point, so that is a pretty cool thing. Natsu says that Ignia is in there, and that before the flames swallow up the whole continent, we gotta take him out. But then he notices that Miss Fortune's body is beginning to break apart. Fortune says that the flames are more incredible than she thought, but tells Natsu not to worry, saying that she's gonna take him to Ignia no matter what, as we see her body literally beginning to disintegrate because her flames are so much weaker than Ignia's that is literally burning her away. That is something interesting, because while Miss Fortune is covered in flames, I assumed she would also have a good resistance to flame, but no, her flames are not as hot and as resistant to Ignia's new sun fire as I initially thought. So Miss Fortune is going through it right now. But we then cut to Wendy at Alderone's core, as she says, Luxus aside, because again, he's a full-blown dragon slayer, she says that Erza and Gray definitely need her enchantments to fight dragons. I feel like this is another instance of Mashima forgetting things, because while we do know that Erza has a Dragon Slayer armor that has been consistent so far with this fight right now after its reveal, and the fact that Erza seemingly still might have her Dragon Slayer enchanted sword with Natsu's flames, because I really do feel like since Erza has a literal Dragon Slayer armor that Wendy enchanted with Dragon Slayer magic and Dragon Slayer scales, dragon scales, she shouldn't be saying Erza, but I guess the Dragon Slayer enchantment makes her more closer to an actual real Dragon Slayer in terms of her own magical power outside of the armor, so I guess we're going with that technicality. Carla again re-establishes that Wendy has to use her enchantments to enchant everybody with Dragon Slayer magic into the core, but the second Wendy touches Alderone's core, she says that her magic alone isn't going to be enough for this, even with what Celine said. She explains that with how far apart her allies are, she cannot spread her power through the roots that far to all their scattered comrades. And it seems like since the roots spread from the core to a stable area, but the output isn't enough for her to just give everybody Dragon Slayer power. So okay, that gives a relative limit to what she can do at this point in time. Her power alone cannot give everybody Dragon Slayer magic due to the sheer distance that everybody is at. So, okay, that makes sense. That's a problem to solve, which we'll solve in a second. We see an image of Alderone looming over Wendy as she's pondering, as we then get a full page of Alderone upside down right behind Wendy as she senses his presence in sheer fear and shock, as she jumps back as she notices Alderone, as Alderone falls from the ceiling, staring down at Wendy, with even Carla noticing, hey, how the heck are you even still alive? Wendy gets ready to use what I presume is her sky drill attack, which would be really sick to see. But Alderaan holds out his hand and says, "Hold on, I have no desire to harm you." As we do see him, with cracks all over his body. But this obviously confuses Wendy. Carla is also confused as to what Alderaan is talking about, and Alderaan goes up to Wendy saying, "Use my power, because with that you'll be able to enchant everybody through my core." Which confuses Wendy, as Alderaan says, "I'm saying I'm going to assist you." As this confuses the two of them, wondering why would he ally himself with humans. But Alderaan specifies, "I am not allying myself with you. Humans are just nourishment to me. That hasn't changed. But what matters more is that Ignia has to pay. He woke me from my slumber, possessed my spirit, made me rampage, used me, a god." Which honestly is not something that I have to remind myself, and I guess everyone reading, Alderaan literally believes himself to be a god, and he has a genuine god complex. I guess acnologia beating him to near death hundreds of years ago was not enough to knock the godly complex out of him. But here we are. But yeah, he is pissed at Ignia, saying that this disrespect cannot go unpunished, as this is the angriest and most emotion we have seen out of Alderaan yet, which is crazy to see. As Wendy also feels the sheer intensity and animosity from Alderaan. But she says, "But you attacked the people and wrecked the town." With Alderaan just saying, "Okay, so what of it? Don't speak to me of your insignificant morals. Didn't Selene tell you to come here? Won't letting Ignia have his way cause more destruction to the continent?" As Wendy does kind of see his point, but it's then that Alderaan's body begins to disintegrate and crumble apart. As this does concern her, as it seems Alderaan has reached his limit. I guess it is true, he's not at his peak strength. He is, right now, still in the process of dying, because I keep forgetting this, the Dragon Continent thing that he did was a literal kamikaze attack, using whatever life force and magic he had to just seemingly ruin Ignia's plan. Instead, it ended up inadvertently helping him. So it makes sense why Alderaan is still clinging to life to find a way to get back at Ignia. And Wendy is his best shot at that. And Alderaan basically says Wendy to not be concerned with him, saying, "What is it gonna be? Do you want my help or not?" As Wendy resolves herself, seeing Alderaan crumble, saying, Will you really help me?" As Alderaan, being a tsundere in this instance, says, "Fine, you would doubt the word of a god? You've been rather disrespectful yourself, little girl." As he unleashes this array of plants around Wendy, as they're wondering what's going on. As Alderaan says, "You're a dragon slayer. Eat them and use them for power." As this shocks Wendy, saying, "You want me to eat this? You want me to eat your trees?" I'm going to pause really quick before we continue with this section of the story, because one, I was technically right in my last video that Wendy would eat something from Alderaan's magic or made by Alderaan's magic to get a power boost. But I did not expect Alderaan to willingly help her. And this, I think, is actually pretty damn good. Now, I know people are going to complain, but there not being a fight. I wish there was a freaking fight to show Wendy actually obtained this power up herself without any outside help. But this is also fully in line with Alderaan's character. He's not Takano Jutsu'd or friendship powered into helping Wendy. He is on the verge of death, and the last thing that he did willingly was literally be used by Ignia as a pawn in a puppet, waking him up, making him go wild and crazy, and turn him into the focal point of his whole unnecessary plan. And someone like him, who views himself as a literal god, finds it as the biggest insult of his life. So combine that with the fact that Natsu destroyed his outer body and Selene nearly killing him, the one that he has most anger towards is Ignia, due to him literally being used by Ignia against his will. So the fact that Alderaan is just so petty and views himself so highly that he is willing to give aid to a freaking human, someone who he does not respect at all and sees only as nourishment to himself, someone that he vehemently would otherwise try and kill because he hates Ignia so much. I think that is good. That is definitely a really good way, because he is effectively going out, still not changing who he is, but realizing that this is the best option for him to stick it to Ignia. going out fully by literally screwing over the person that screwed him over. He is the pettiest character in the story right now, and I absolutely freaking love it. And it gives more personality to Old Rome than we would have had previously. So, I'm not gonna lie, I'm all for this. Even though I do wish there was a bit more build-up to this moment, with maybe a fight for Old Rome to see if Wendy could potentially handle this power and actually be able to help stop Ignia. I generally feel like this could have been done a bit differently, but either way, it is what it is. I'm still happy with Old Rome not getting Takano Jutsu'd into being an ally, because I'm not gonna lie, I would complain and I would call that absolute bullshit. But I'm glad that the decisions made here make sense for the character and kind of give him more personality than he ever otherwise wouldn't have had. But back to the chapter. Old Rome gives a bunch of flowers growing out of the ground as he tells Wendy to eat it. But Old Rome says that these aren't trees, they are nature, verdure, which is just another way of saying just lush green plants, fresh vegetation, or just plants and foliage themselves. Just a general term for like plants and vegetation, which honestly, not bad. Better than just giving her the wood attribute. He's giving her the essence of nature, which also makes sense to Old Rome since he has grown trees and flora across his bodies and the towns that were built in his bodies. So he's giving Wendy the ability to consume basically nature itself. And with that declaration, Wendy doesn't hesitate and begins to eat the verdure that Old Rome creates. As Carla says that Wendy's body is beginning to turn green, as Wendy begins to transform. As Old Rome says, if I were to name it, Sky Verdure Dragon, perhaps, as Wendy now has unleashed a brand new form, with a more floral dress and flowers being bloomed from her hair, as she's become one with the verdure. And this is a pretty sick design, I'm not gonna lie. Not only is this an advancement of her own abilities, this is her dual element ability. She not only has sky magic, but also, effectively, nature magic. So she is effectively, and if we go with the theme from Lucy last a chapter ago, I would basically say that Wendy basically became a nature goddess. Like Lucy became a moon and water goddess last chapter. So genuinely, I like this. This is really damn cool. The image and the design itself is honestly beautiful. Not sure how the coloring is going to be. I'm seeing just green, but maybe with a bit of pink to add to the previous form of her being with her dragon force to add a bit of that in there. Either way, it is a really, really cool design. And from that moment, Wendy touches down on the ground and in an instant creates a field of flowers and plants. Literally, nature god at this point. Really damn cool. Showing the full breadth of Old Rome's power that she has ended up acquiring. So she also has gained the powers of a dragon god to amp herself up. But with that passing of the torch and power, Old Rome officially crumbles away. And so now, Wendy is going to use her power to save everybody. And that's where we leave Wendy for now, as we cut back to Natsu and Fortune, as it seems like they're getting closer to the center of the sun, as he continuously asks Fortune if she is okay, as he is still getting burnt up. But we see that Miss Fortune is almost gone, completely disintegrated, with Natsu telling Miss Fortune that he can go the rest of the way himself and for her to go back because her body won't last. But Fortune says that I'm a cat who summons happiness, so I'll be okay. I promised I'd get you there no matter what. And before she finishes her sentence, Miss Fortune disappears in front of Natsu, as we have now reached the center of the sun. Ignia, sitting down with flames erupting from his body to create the area that they are now standing in, with Natsu saying to Fortune, "You brought me here just like you promised, to the guy I'm gonna punch out." As the chapter ends with Natsu and Ignia staring each other down. And that's how the chapter ends. Now look, I do have my issues as to how we got to the point of Wendy gaining this power. I feel like it should have been more of a journey, or at least a chapter to build this up. But how she gets the power in a way I can appreciate, as this doesn't undermine Old Rome's character and feeds into the complaints of power-ups coming in a way that makes no real sense based off of characteristics. Old Rome giving Wendy and honestly, with her sky magic plus nature, it really feels like it adds into the theme of all the dual elements we've seen kind of feeding into each other, like Natsu and Loxus, Sting and Rogue, Gagiel and Rogue. The powers feel like that they complement each other. And so, with the ability of just nature effectively and plants, Wendy also has the power of sky, which also breathes life into everything. So thematically, it is perfect for Wendy, I'm not gonna lie. Someone who is nurturing and effectively brings everybody back to full health and heals them, having her be having nature be a big part of her toolkit fits her immensely. And this is something that we see in a lot of anime and manga where people with plant-based powers for the most part or nature-based abilities are also fantastic healers and are the more nurturing type. So this feels like a good natural evolution of Wendy. And unlike Lucy's power that we got last chapter, this one feels more permanent because, again, complementary elements, but also Alderaan willingly gave his element to Wendy and she ate it. Just like how Natsu did, just like how Loxus gave his light to Natsu and Rogue gave his shadow to Sting. Those instances make a lot of sense as to why they were instantly attainable because of the willingness to it. Gagiel kind of forced himself, but also they were kind of brothers to begin with and their elements complemented each other, so that kind of fed into the whole thing. But either way, generally, I like this chapter. Wendy got a much needed power up, but I do wish that she got her own real 1v1 fight instead of getting a power up to just boost everybody. I'm curious to see how this is going to play out because I don't want Wendy to just get a form to buff everybody and then that form ends up being, kind of useless afterwards and not used since she hasn't got her own final fight. That is my only real critique and disappointment of the chapter. Wendy not having a fight with Alderaan before attaining this new form. But at the end of the day, Alderaan's character maintains consistent, adds a bit more depth and personality to Alderaan that we never got beforehand, so yeah, I'm fine with it. It doesn't contradict the character in any way with how he helped Wendy, because again, he's a petty bitch. And I find it hilarious that he's only helping humans that he only sees as nourishment, because it's his best option to stick it to ignia. But you guys let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. What do you think of this chapter? How do you feel about Wendy's new form and how she got it? Do you think it's pretty thematically relevant and perfect for Wendy for her form to be this, and her abilities be plant-based now alongside her wind magic? Do you think it's permanent, like I believe? Do you think we're going to instantly jump to Natsu versus Ignia round 3, or are we going to hold off and see what's going on with the rest of the Dragon Slayers and everybody else in their Calamity Limb matchups before we jump back to Natsu? And how do you feel about Miss Fortune's sacrifice? I found it kind of sad, but I didn't comment on it for a reason because I didn't feel any connection to Miss Fortune. I liked her, she was fun, and she was another possible love interest for Happy, which I found funny. But, unfortunately, the death, quote-unquote, did not hit, unfortunately. And that's because we haven't really gotten too much time to really get that invested in Miss Fortune. I like her, I'm sad she's gone, but this hasn't held any real weight for me. But you guys let me know everything you think in the comment section down below and how you think what's going to happen in the future, and what else could potentially happen with this story now that we are seemingly going straight towards the end game. Let me know. And once more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. And if you want to support the channel more directly, go and check out my Patreon. Link in the description. First tier and above members will end up getting access to my Patreon-only Discord server and access to, starting in August, my monthly chapter batch reviews of any particular series. Right now, I'm planning it to be Ichi the Witch because that series gets copyright struck a lot because it's Shueisha, and so that's why I'm not covering it here on the channel at all. So go and check that out once that first video drops. And I'm also planning to do actual reaction content for anime over there at least once or twice a month minimum and see how that goes. I want to make Patreon something that you guys would want to check out and have fun with, so I would really appreciate if you guys go and check it out whenever you get the chance. But with all that said and done, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you all have an awesome day.